Control Alt Z is the shortcut to step backwards. It's much easier than having to go here and choose step backward because I have to go back fast. Control Shift Z now is the shortcut to step forward, and that would replay the stuff that you did. I'll repeat. Control Alt Z to go back in steps, and Control Shift Z is to go forward in steps. Where do you find them in case you forget them? Up here. Step forward, Control Shift Z, or Shift Control Z. Step backward, Alt Control Z. Alright, so what I want to do now is actually clear everything from my image. How can I clear everything with one keyboard shortcut? No, Control A will select everything. Control A is to select everything. That's not to clear everything. To clear everything, you press Control and Delete on the keyboard. Undo. Repeat. To clear everything, you press Control Delete on the keyboard. But I did clear everything, but it got black. Who knows why? Bravo, Aleki, because the background color is black. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna click here to reset it to white, and then press Control Delete. So a fast way is this. Let's say that my background color was not white. So in case I press Control Delete, it's going to be red, because Control Delete will replace everything with the background color. In case I wanted to replace everything with white, I have to click here, and this is the default foreground and background color. The shortcut is D. So if I press D, Control Delete, I clear everything with white. I repeat, if my background color was anything, let's say blue, and I had stuff here, let's change the color to paint something, and I wanted to replace everything with white, I press D and Control Delete, and there you go, it wipes out. Why? Because the D will reset this to black and white, and Control Delete will replace it with whichever is my background color. Simple. Now, let's continue working with the brush. Increase the brush size. Now, I can change the color that I'm working with by clicking here. Let's say green. And here I'm going to look at the opacity, which is 100. You know about the opacity. It's how much thick the painting is. How thick. If you decrease the opacity, it becomes more transparent. So let's choose 75. Okay, here we can't see if it's transparent or not. So I'm going to undo. And instead, I'm going to bring in an image so that we actually see the amount of transparency. So let's just bring this in. And I'm going to actually create a new layer to paint over, because I want to keep this intact, the building, and have a new layer that I can remove if I like later on. So 100% opacity is this. So it hides everything underneath. 75. You see 25% of what is underneath. Because I have 75 opaque, it means that I have 25% transparent. So 25% of underneath. 50 is 50-50. So 50 from the green and 50 from the building. 25% means that I'm seeing 75% of the building and 25% of the green, and so forth. So that's the opacity. So always think in terms of layer, because since this is a layer, I did not destroy my original image. I can move this around, and I can also, of course, delete it. So that's the opacity. Now what's the flow? Who knows what the flow is? If I decrease the flow, every individual brush stroke will decrease so that I see the actual circles that make up the brush. But before, with the opacity, they were continuous. So if I set this to 100 and decrease it to 50, it will still stay continuous with the opacity. But with the flow, it will break them apart. So I will see every stroke that my brush is doing. This is for artistic effects. So Ctrl-Alt-Z to remove those. Now here I have the airbrush. Now the airbrush works best whenever I select a soft brush from here. You see, these are hard brushes, so the edge is hard. But if I selected a soft brush or something like this, and if I click, I just get one circle. Let's make the brush a bit bigger. If I click on airbrush and I keep pressing, it will get bigger. It's like having an airbrush, a sprayer brush that you spray on one spot, and when you keep spraying, it gets bigger. So this is again for artistic effects. Without the airbrush, you don't have this effect. So I'm pressing still, but it's still the same size. But now with the airbrush, I'm pressing and it gets still bigger. So whenever you stay, alright, let's make it a different color to become more visible. If you stay somewhere for some time, it will be bigger. So it's best used with a soft brush, and there's the airbrush option here. Okay, so I'm gonna delete the building layer and create a new layer, and I'm gonna call this layer actually grass. Okay, look here. I'm gonna call the layer grass, and I'm gonna create some grass. You know what grass is. The first thing that I can think of is to choose a green brush like this. If I try to paint grass, it doesn't look a lot like grass, of course. So I right click here, and I have some brush options that I can choose from. If I scroll down here, I have something that looks like grass. You see, so you have one strand here, and down here you have 3 strands. So let's select the one strand for now. It's a bit too big, so I'm gonna click on the left bracket to make it smaller, and now I'll start to paint something like this. This is not just for grass. You can use it to paint what? Hair, for example, on a character. Alright, but here I see that the colors are not very good. Why? Because I have a combination of green and white. Where's the white coming from? From the background color. So I'm gonna choose green and darker green, just to have a variation. So now whenever I paint, it's much more realistic. So let's zoom out. And okay, let's say that I want to paint this grass in perspective. So in the back, I'm gonna have smaller, shorter grass, and while I gradually move forward, I have longer grass. So this is similar to the project that I asked you to do, the small assignment that I asked you to do. So here in the back, I'm going to reduce the brush size, and I'm going to go like this. Something like this. Alright. Now, while I get closer to the camera, I will expand the brush size a bit, so it gets a bit bigger. I'm going to add some black actually here, just to make it even more varied. I don't want all the grass to look exactly the same. Okay, something like this. Now closer, I want to add some yellow. Something like this. And again, longer grass. And closer, let's brighten up the yellow a little bit. And make the grass even bigger. Alright. So something like that. So I have now a nice grass, something somewhere over here, but I have a lot of white space, and I don't want to show the white space. So what I'm going to do actually, here I have something left out, but I'll leave it. I should have zoomed out to see what I have. It's alright. What I'm going to do is actually create a new layer under the grass. Maybe I'll call it color fill. and I'll just paint some soil underneath. So let's call it soil. It's even better than color fill. You know what soil is. So here I need a brown color. Thank you. And let's choose a darker brown down here. But we're going to choose another brush, something that resembles some soil. And let's see. Maybe this one here. It's a bit rough, so it's good for soil. So I'm going to increase the brush size here just to make it more visible to you. So it's going to give me something like this. So I can use this for soil. Alright, undo. And undo. And maybe add a bit more brown to this, because that was a bit greenish. And reduce the brush size and start to paint underneath. Alright, so now it looks much more full. Alright, let's hide the grass. Okay, this is all the same color. Is this normal in nature? It's not normal because you always have variation. So I'm going to click here and make this a bit brighter. And just add some brighter spots. And then click and make it even brighter and add other bright spots and so forth. Maybe add some gray somewhere. Alright? And see what I'm going to do now. I'm going to actually make this a bit more varied than the way it is by applying filters. So here I selected the soil layer. I hid the grass layer. See, because I want to work with this one. I want to crack this up to give it the appearance of rocks and so forth. So I'm going to go to filter and I'm going to go to, let's see which one gives us the best one here, to texture. And let's try. If we choose craquelure, in this case it cracks up, but it doesn't look very nice because it looks flat. So I'm not going to use that. Let's try another one. Texturizer. Texturizer has different options here that I can use. Now I'm not going to see this texture very clearly, but in case it slips through the grass, I need to see it like this. So I can increase the relief just to make it harder and change the direction of the light. So something like this is not bad. So I'll press OK. If I press Ctrl Z a few times, I can compare what I had before and what I have now. I'm going to do other stuff. I'm going to go to Filter, Brushstrokes and Spatter. The spatter will actually break up the texture. So I'm going to increase the spatter radius just to break this up. I can smooth it out or decrease the smoothness to make it really rough. Alright, so something like this maybe. I'll press OK. So it's not very clear now what I have underneath. So let's go like this. So now I have some nice soil and rocks underneath. Now with respect to the color,